strip clubs, food marts charged with selling illegal synthetic drugs, and overnight nightclubs with histories of violence. Those are usually the kind of businesses most people don't want in their communities, but many East St. Louis area politicians have embraced them. Friday night in the Hustler Club. The multi-million-dollar operation is part of the biggest industry in Washington Park, a poor village just north of East St. Louis. There are 10 strip clubs here, one for every 500 residents.
The community has embraced us, and specifically the leaders of this community.
A decade ago, then Washington Park Mayor Sherman Sorrell and his wife joined Hustler founder Larry Flint for a ribbon-cutting ceremony to mark the club's grand opening. 2 months before that ribbon cutting, campaign finance records show the mayor received political contributions of $7,000 from the club that changed its name to Hustler. It was by far his largest campaign contributions. Sorrell declined to be interviewed for this program.
Well, why would we want to be anywhere else?
Inside Hustler, virtually all the employees and customers are white. There's plenty of money, and no one feels neglected. Outside the club, nearly all of the residents are black, many of them are poor, and the village looks largely abandoned. Since the Hustler ribbon cutting, Washington Park has filed for bankruptcy twice. Gambling, strip clubs, and convenient marts and other businesses selling booze seem to drive much of the economy in the East St. Louis area. Some nightclubs stay open until 6 a.m.
I think, to be honest, those are the people that are willing to come here to invest.
Vicki Forby is the executive director of Emerson Park Development, an East St. Louis nonprofit that runs a job training program, a charter school, and has partnered on the development of hundreds of housing units.
Investors are always looking for a return on their investment, and rightly so. And I think that they are afraid to make the investment and take the risk here.
Emerson Park's biggest project was Parsons Place, a partnership with developer McCormick Barron Salazar. Built a decade ago next to the light rail line, Parsons Place now has nearly 400 apartments and a dozen homes. Despite being in a community decimated by poverty, corruption, and violence, Parsons Place inspired a second successful development next to it.
Is there a lot of violence? Yes. Do I focus on that? No. Do I focus on the corruption? No. Do I focus on the negative? No. If I did all of those things, I'd be like those investors, and I'd leave.
There are serious investors in East St. Louis, but many of them aren't serious about developing their property. A News 4 investigation found that much of the vacant land and housing is owned by speculators who don't live in East St. Louis. One by one, some of the worst-looking real estate in St. Clair County is sold to the highest bidder. This auction features property taken from previous owners who didn't pay their taxes. 5 years ago, we watched as two guys from the Chicago area bought land in East St. Louis at a faster rate than anyone could remember. Now the three companies based out of this small home in Skokie, Illinois, own nearly 800 pieces of property, hundreds more than the next largest private landowner.
The area looks pretty good right now.
A.J. Baba, who refused to name his investors during our interview 5 years ago, was the only publicly identified company official. He admitted that he planned to do nothing with the property.
You know what the problem with a lot of the stuff that goes on? Sometimes you build something, they destroy it. You got to wait for some positive aspect.
Speculators have also tied up much of the property on the underdeveloped East St. Louis riverfront, possibly the most prized land in the Metro East. Although city leaders have often talked about ambitious plans for this area, those plans often failed partly because there was never a unanimous agreement on how to develop it.
Sometimes it feels like it's a fight to make things happen.
In other words, East St. Louis is often its own worst enemy, and it's been like that for a very long time. Nearly a century ago, the city was the scene of the worst race riot in American history. Perhaps as many as 200 blacks were killed. Thousands were left homeless as whites attacked African Americans for taking jobs they felt belonged to them. During the first 30 years after World War II, the East St. Louis area lost tens of thousands of jobs as employers moved to less expensive places to conduct business. And in the late 60s, 70s, and 80s, thousands of whites left for the suburbs.
Why do you think it changed?
I don't know. I couldn't explain that to you. I would like to know that myself, why they all ran away.
The white people?
They all ran away.
How long did it take the white people to leave?
You know, I can't think, not too many years. They didn't stay, they left.
Helen Lewis was the first black woman in her Washington Park neighborhood.
I think they didn't want to live around us.
Did you see white people leaving when there was only 1 or 2 black people here? Or did it take more black people to come to the neighborhood before the white people left?
Well, when the more black people come in, they left.
That's when the white people left. So you think that some of the white people thought it was maybe okay for just a few black people to live here, but not a lot of them.
There weren't a lot of them, but a lot of them moved in.
And when more black people moved in, then more white people left.
And more white people left.
How did that make you feel when that happened?
Yeah, it was kind of crucial.
Did it hurt?
A little bit.
The so-called white flight left a deep wound for many blacks left behind, but thousands of blacks also moved out of East St. Louis and the surrounding villages.
People chased the money.
Chase the money, absolutely.
And if they could move out and get a better job and buy a better house and put their kids in a better school district, in most cases, didn't they do it?
Wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think that people are human, and they are going to do what is best for their self-interest first. And I think that's what happened.
Now, according to the latest census figures, 98% of the people living in the East St. Louis area are black. 4 out of 10 East St. Louisans live in poverty, more than triple the state average. Residents here are far less likely to have graduated from college and far more likely to be unemployed. Repeated scandals and criminal prosecutions of public officials have prompted even less confidence among investors who might be willing to conduct business here.
Somewhere we have lost our way when it comes to black leadership in East St. Louis.
Retired nurse Phyllis McReynolds says 6 generations of her family have lived in East St. Louis. She still lives in the city and is a leader at Mount Zion Missionary Baptist, one of the oldest and most active churches in East St. Louis. Her activities and her photo collection are evidence of her commitment to family. Years ago, she wanted to open a family-style restaurant in East St. Louis and tried to get government support, but she says city officials didn't help, and eventually her dream died.
Never heard from anyone in reference to it. Never got to first base.
Crown Food Marts not only got to first base, they also received millions of dollars in government tax breaks. During repeated visits to those businesses, we noticed that the overwhelming majority of employees are men of Middle Eastern descent, just like the owner, who lives in the $700,000 home in West St. Louis County.
How many Arabs do you know live in East St. Louis? And yet they own the businesses. The people who own the businesses don't spend their money in East St. Louis. They take it back to where they live. And then we are allowed to just fall apart.
East St. Louis no longer allows clubs to stay open past 3 a.m., even though the mayor thinks that's a mistake. Mayor Parks insists that the Casino Queen and the Crown Food Marts have been great investments for the city because they produce millions of dollars in revenue every year. Although he admits Crown hasn't hired enough local residents, especially considering it received massive tax incentives that were made possible by local taxpayers. When we come back, a look at some possible solutions to the enormous challenges in East St. Louis.